different linguistic and cultural groups. There are another 10,000 Métis, compared to the fewer than 2,000 inhabitants who came from the rest of Canada. The arrival of the railway in 1882 changes that. Between 1881 and 1885, the European population rises from 5,400 to over 28,000. New settlements spring up. With them comes the demand for parliamentary representation in Ottawa and more legislative powers for the territories. Lieutenant Governor Dewdney works cooperatively with the Council, but because he is appointed by the federal government and responsible governing institutions do not yet exist, he must represent and carry out the policies of the national government and his friend, Prime Minister Macdonald. Macdonald seems reluctant to give the Territorial Council more power and legislative autonomy.
With the exception of ourselves, each province has a means of making itself heard through its local legislature and its representative in the Dominion Parliament. That our rapidly increasing population, to say nothing of our extent of territory, entitles us to the management of our territorial interests and a strong voice in the affairs of the Dominion is a matter beyond argument. It is self-evident.
From 1883 to 1887, school districts and municipalities are established. Schools are built, a civil service recruited. The legislative power of the Council is expanded. The Northwest Territories is coming into its own.
The history of politics in the Northwest Territories in the 1880s and 1890s is largely concerned with the struggle for control of the public purse by the elected representatives in the legislature and by a campaign to eliminate the considerable powers which the Lieutenant Governor enjoyed in the day-to-day governance of the Northwest Territories.
The dream of a legislative assembly is realized at the end of Dewdney's term, with the passing of the Northwest Territories Act of 1888. The Territorial Council becomes the Legislative Assembly of the Northwest Territories. In October 1888, the first Legislative Assembly of the Territories is held in Regina's Territorial Government Building. It comes not long after the inauguration of Joseph Royal, the first Lieutenant Governor to live in the new Government House, completed in 1891.
Now you have a government house that, speaking in common and ordinary language, we may say will last for all time. It is such a structure as a person representing the Government of Canada and representing Her Majesty, and who is head of society as well as political life in the Northwest, should have.
1891. An amendment to the Northwest Territories Act gives many of the powers of the Lieutenant Governor to an executive committee headed by Frederick Haltain, leader of the Northwest Territorial Assembly. 6 years later, an amendment to the Act gives the Executive Council and Assembly most of what is left of the Lieutenant Governor's administrative and executive responsibility.
The Northwest Territories will soon cease to exist by attaining the dignity of provinces. Those of us who were out in the early days may therefore be excused if we love to dwell on the good old times.
The great, the long-expected and much prepared-for day has come and gone, and amidst much pomp and ceremony and boundless popular enthusiasm, Saskatchewan has taken her place in the confederation of provinces that constitute the Dominion of Canada.
Monday, September 4th, 1905, breaks fine and clear. The enlarged grandstand at the Regina Exhibition Ground is filled to capacity. Prime Minister Wilfrid Laurier is there. So is Earl Grey, Governor-General of Canada. They watch as Amédée Emmanuel Forget is sworn in as the first Lieutenant Governor of the new province of Saskatchewan.
I have seen the country grow from its birth, develop during its years of infancy, progress through youth, and today, with you, I have the intense satisfaction to see it give birth to two fine provinces, which will, in time, take first rank by their importance and wealth in that galaxy of provinces constituting the Dominion of Canada.
With inaugural day, the map of Canada changes once again. So does the office of the Lieutenant Governor. One of the first acts of Saskatchewan's new Lieutenant Governor is to select the province's first Premier, Walter Scott. On that day in 1905, Saskatchewan attains what Madame Forget calls the dignity of provinces. It has its own legislative assembly, based on the principles of full responsible government. Seven years later, that assembly has its own legislative building. The province no longer needs a lieutenant governor who actually governs. The nature of the office has changed forever. The Capel Gallery in the Saskatchewan Legislative Building. Testament to the evolution and survival of the vice-regal office. A tribute to the individuals who served as this province's lieutenant governors. Like George Brown, the first Saskatchewan resident to be lieutenant governor. Archie McNabb, known for his total lack of pretension. During their royal visit in 1939, Archie urges King George VI and Queen Elizabeth to come back and bring the kids next time. The Queen calls him one of the dearest old men she's ever met. He is the last lieutenant governor to live at Government House. William Patterson, the first Saskatchewan-born lieutenant governor. He is also the first premier born in the province, the son of a railway section foreman in Grenfell. Sylvia Fedoric, the first woman appointed lieutenant governor of Saskatchewan. While the federal government still appoints and pays the lieutenant governor, the office of the lieutenant governor has indeed changed. It has evolved from a vice-regal representative who actually governs to one who receives advice from government ministers through the process of responsible government. And since a landmark court case in 1892, the lieutenant governor is as much the representative of the Queen for the province as the Governor-General is for Canada. The office of the lieutenant governor is forever woven into the fabric of this province's history. But it doesn't end here. The lieutenant governor has a job to do, a vital constitutional role to play in the day-to-day life of Saskatchewan.
I'm amazed your country is rather small with a very large population.
Exactly. When you look at the geographical side.
If you've ever wondered what the Crown has to do with your everyday life, just look around. It's everywhere.
I leave you now to the business of the session with full confidence that you will favorably discharge your duties and responsibilities. May divine providence continue to bless our province and guide this legislature in all its deliberations. God save the Queen.
In Canada, we don't swear allegiance to flags or constitutions, however important they may be.
First, the oath of allegiance. Would you repeat after me? I, John Edward Neil Weep.
I, John Edward Neil Weep,
Do swear.
do swear
That I will be faithful.
that I will be faithful
And bear true allegiance.
and bear true allegiance
To Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II.
Canadians offer their loyalty to a person, a nonpartisan sovereign who symbolizes them all, regardless of their differences, who represents continuity in a political system that has evolved over centuries, who represents the collective commitment of Canadians to institutions of democratic and responsible government. Elections are called and laws proclaimed in the name of the sovereign. The trial division of the Superior Court in Saskatchewan is called Her Majesty's Court of Queen's Bench. A court summons is made in the name of the Queen.